Throughout time, people have searched for cures for pain, sickness, disease, and death. The first place they looked was to the earth. Drugs have been available and used in different parts of the world long before modern medicine. Thousands of years ago, in ancient civilizations, the healing benefits of plants and flowers were first discovered. The ancient Romans used lavender to clean and dress the wounds of soldiers. The Chinese used chrysanthemum tea to detoxify the body systems, relax the body, and encourage a good night's sleep. Chrysanthemum was even used as an antidote for sore throats. Modern medicine has progressed a great amount since ancient times. Today, scientists have looked toward the rainforest to find new cures. Here, they spend countless hours searching for new species of plants in hopes of finding cures for unsolved problems. Every day, in factories, millions of drugs are tested in hopes of eliminating symptoms of as many conditions as they possibly can. The ultimate goal of drugs is for patients to resume their normal lives. There is, however, a dark side to the drugs. The illegal drug trade is an unstoppable business worth $400 billion a year. It is home to illegal drugs such as marijuana, cocaine, heroin, and ecstasy. But it is not only the illegal drugs that cause many problems in today's society. Drugs, such as prescribed medicines and painkillers, are also a huge problem. Both illegal and legal drugs can have harmful and long-lasting effects. It begins with addiction. People become physically and mentally dependent on drugs, leading them to be unable to cope with everyday life without these drugs. Today, in society, people, as well as young teens in their high school years, begin to use drugs to avoid the things that bother them the most. These teens want to avoid pressure from friends, stresses in the family, and pressure to get good grades or perform well at their sport. Many teens just want to fit in with the crowd. The problem arises when drugs, ultimately, makes their situation worse. Their grades begin to drop even more, they slowly become unable to perform their sport well, and friends begin to part ways with them because of their drug problem. Once teens get off their high, they often feel the same as they did before. This leads them to addiction because they feel they need the drug more and more. Studies show that 1/3 of high school students who have tried drugs become addicted. Drug use by adolescents declined from the late 1990s until the mid to late 2000s, but it has been on the increase since then. In 2012, 6.5% of 8th graders, 17% of 10th graders, and 22.9% of 12th graders have used drugs in the past month, an increase from among 10th and 12th graders from 14.2% and 18.8% in 2007. Over the past year, 70.6% of high school students admitted to using alcohol, 19.9% marijuana, 10% stimulants uppers, 9.5% other opiates, 7.3% tranquilizers, and 6.5% sedatives, 6.2% hallucinogens, 5.3% cocaine, 4.2% inhalants, 1.6% steroids, and 0.9% heroin.
Each year, how many students do you deal with regarding drugs?
I would say roughly anywhere between 5 and 10.
And why do you think so many high schoolers do drugs?
I think that the teenage years is people tend to make some decisions that aren't the best and, a little reckless thinking.
How old do most of the kids that you've spoken to about drugs tend to be?
I've seen range from the freshman class to the senior class, so all ages.
And what do you think are some ways that we can help kids end their addictions?
I think by educating students on the ramifications of drug use later in life would help prevent use now.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Many people may wonder where do they get these drugs? According to teens, drugs are fairly easy to come by. 29% of teens in grades 9 through 12 report that illegal drugs were made available to them on school property. Not only that, 38.4% of teens in public schools reported that drugs are readily available. Teens in upper grades report greater access to drugs than do teens in lower grades. And 62.9% report that street gangs are present to sell drugs.
Students you deal with regarding drugs?
That depends on the year and what dealing with kids who have drugs. So I certainly have kids who get caught, get suspended, and most of the time, just the way that we run the program here, we don't have an opportunity to actually deal with them. So, they usually get out of school suspension, and then we see them when they come back.
So why do you think many students do this drugs?
Well, this is not any different than any other place in the United States. Drugs exist. You guys are at the age of curiosity, and you're going to be presented with choices. And unfortunately, some people can't handle the peer pressure or the ability to make the choice to stay away from some things. And unfortunately, again, some people go all the way over the edge, and it takes control of them.
All right, so how old do most of the kids that you have spoken to tend to be?
Well, I mean, drugs is not age specific, so you can, when I was in the middle school, you saw kids that were using drugs, and certainly there are kids in every grade that are exposed to different types of drugs.
Many people may ask, why do high schoolers take drugs?
Well, because I think it's the cool thing to do. I mean, they're just trying to fit in with their friends and stuff, but really it's stupid and dumb and they shouldn't do it,
I think so many high school kids use drugs because it makes them seem cool. They try to fit in with other people. They think that's their way into certain groups, certain crowds. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
I think most high schoolers take drugs because they try to be cool. That's a reason. One, all their friends do it, so if their friends do it, oh, it's cool, I'm gonna do drugs. That's what I think. What about you?
I feel like because parents, they ban it so much, it's tempting to do drugs. Our kids do drugs.
About each year, how many students do you deal with that have used drugs or alcohol?
Each year. Well, I don't know if we've actually done a statistic for it, but there's quite a few students who are, pretty much high and what would be the right answer to that? I'm not even sure.
Have altered mental status.
Altered mental status, that's good.
What are the
too many that we're upset about, that too many of you guys do way too many illegal things and come into school thinking that it's perfectly okay, so.
What are the effects on the body of drugs and alcohol for a kid in high school? What does it do to them?
You're basically setting yourself up for destruction. There is a physiological addiction. There is a psychological addiction. It depends. And many of the drugs all, sometimes have both, which is horrible. And then others are just just one type. So basically, what that means is that the addiction is so strong that you desire it to such a degree that you actually can't function. You get nervous, your heart starts racing, all these other different things could potentially happen if you have a physiological addiction. Psychological is when you go, oh, this is so cool, I want to sit there and just, get high with my buddies.
Yeah.
So all that escalates. Every time you guys try to do one particular type of drug, you could escalate it into the next type and the next type, and then your life is completely altered.
Are there any testing programs that can be set up to help prevent the use of drugs for teens?
Testing programs? You mean actually
drug tests?
Doing drug testing?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's actually anything. There's no legal drug testing that you can do.
It's a fine line, and the district hasn't, done anything with that yet.
Right. They haven't said that that's okay, to do. But education is the best way to prevent, and you guys have to really consider what you learn and how it could potentially, because no one really knows how addicted or how addictive their nature is. And once you do start taking something, you could, some people could turn around and go, oh, I'll just have the one and then that's it. And then many others will just wreck their lives and winds up in rehab a year later or 6 months later. You don't know what your nature is. That's why we always say as adults to stay away from it.
Yeah.
Life is difficult enough. You guys have too much on your plates, and when you start adding that into the picture, you just wreck everything.
Not all the time, but a lot of the times, it's like, what's the underlying reason that someone would want to take a Xanax or something before school? There's got to be something going on in your life that you feel the need to try to escape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the part that's really concerns us. And it's upsetting.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of hurting kids out there. That's how we feel.
Definitely. Thank you very much for your time.
More people do come to school under the influence than you would think. According to a new study by the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse, about 17% of American high school students are drinking, smoking, or using drugs during the day. According to studies, 30% of high school students never get a diploma or GED. Drug abuse is one of the top 3 reasons why these students fail to complete their high school education.
Okay, so, Mr. Gannon, we know that you're a coach here at Coach West of the soccer team. Have you ever dealt with drugs conflicting with athletes?
Not confirmed, but I've had some suspicions for certain kids over the 10 years. Very, very few, but yes, once in a while, yeah.
And why would you think that most high school students tend to use drugs?
I think they use it to stay in a certain clique. Their friends are doing it, so they think that's what you should do. Some are curious, some want to try it. In the end, it's nothing positive about it.
What do you think are some ways that we can help kids stop taking drugs at such an early age?
I think educating them, in the elementary schools and the middle schools, and just ingrain it in their heads that this is a negative thing and have a negative impact on their lives. Maybe bring in high school, possibly past drug users in as guest speakers. Some of those people that do motivational speaking, things like that.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Many athletes may wonder how drugs affect their game. Marijuana negatively affects the central nervous system. Marijuana stays in your central nervous system for up to 30 days and it accumulates there over time. The most serious effects on athletes' performance from marijuana usage are motivation and focus decretion, processing and multitasking are impaired, visual tracking and depth perception is decreased, reflection reaction, precision and accuracy are slowed, and coordination is decreased. These side effects can cause an athlete to lose a major step in his game. Today's society needs to work harder to get these rising statistics going in the opposite direction. We need to instill morals and values to stay away from drugs. Schools were found to not administer drug tests, which should change if these numbers continue to rise. Since teens started using drugs so much earlier than in years past, schools should begin educating about drugs more in the middle school and even in the elementary schools. Parents should get their children involved with extracurricular activities so they have other interests and less free time to experiment with drugs. Studies also show that the stricter the parents are about drugs, the less likely their child will be to try drugs. Together, families and schools can help better the youth of our nation, therefore improving our society.